Hello everyone, it's Brett here, Lionheart84, and I just thought I'd do just a quick video about talking about being wary when you're buying fruit plants that need to be able to get cross-pollination, that you don't get caught out and accidentally get clones or plants that are basically genetically identical. It came to my mind to do a short video about this because one of my YouTube friends earlier this week, Anne, was saying that this year she'd had 2 Feijoa plants absolutely covered in flowers, fabulous flowers, she said, and not a single fruit set. So I asked her if she knew if the plants were different varieties or from different sources, because obviously some pineapple guavas or Feijoas are self-fertile. There are some varieties that are considered to be quite self-fertile, and others are not self-fertile and ideally need cross-pollination with a genetically different plant or different variety. And she said, oh well, I bought 2 different plants, so they should pollinate, they should fertilize each other. I said, yeah, but did you buy the plants from 2 different sources or parts of the country, or did you buy them from the same seller? And she said, well, I bought them from the same seller, but there's 2 separate plants. I said, it's quite possible that if they've come from the same seller, unless they're actual labelled, named different varieties, I said, if they're just unnamed, sorry, there's a plane going overhead, if they're just unnamed pineapple guavas, Feijoa, Acaciloiana, I said it's quite possible that that person's been propagating them from the cuttings of one plant. So you could have 4 or 5 plants grown from cuttings of the same plant, and actually they're all, of course, identical clones of the parent. So if one of them is not self-fertile, then it doesn't matter how many you buy that have originated from the same plant, they're still not going to be self-fertile. And she just didn't even think about that. It's amazing how sometimes it's not something that crosses your mind. But if you have clones of a non-self-fertile fruit plants, they won't pollinate each other. Now obviously if you grow them from seed, each one's going to be genetically different, so that makes a big difference. And it's not just pineapple guavas. Obviously I've got the same problem with my Passiflora incarnata or maypop. I'm hoping to cross-pollinate it with a different species actually of passion flower. But if you have got plants that are quite often not self-fertile, now that would be pawpaw, for example, Asamina triloba. Quite a few, surprisingly, some of the stone fruits are not very self-fertile, or pears. They recommend you have a couple of different varieties for good cross-pollination. But as I said, if you would buy something like a pineapple guava or an Asamina triloba, and it turns out to be from the same source, the same parent plant, there is no genetic diversity, and if the pollen's not self-fertile, doesn't matter how many you buy or grow from the same plant, they're not going to pollinate each other. So I recommended to Anne that she try and buy a plant from a completely different source. Like I said, because I think your problem is you've got 2 clones of a non-self-fertile Feijoa or pineapple guava, and therefore you're not going to get fruits. Now sometimes they do set fruits. It may be for some reason or other the climate conditions haven't worked for the plants. Maybe there have been no appropriate insects or birds cross-pollinating them properly. Maybe it hasn't been breezy enough for the pollen to transfer. Maybe she's not been trying to hand pollinate them with brushes. But to be on the safe side, I suggested she try and locate a pineapple guava from a completely different source in another part of the country. And obviously you know, it is possible that that plant could also come from the same original parent and it's spread all over where she lives. But there's certainly a much more light, if you haven't actually got named different varieties, there is more likelihood if you buy a plant from a different source, and even better, a different country, then most likely it will be either a different variety or have originated from a different seedling. So bear that in mind. If you've got a fruiting plant that just doesn't set fruit, or two fruiting plants, if they've come from the same source, they are probably genetic clones, and if they're not self-fertile, they're not going to pollinate each other. So just look for different named varieties where possible, but if you can't get named varieties, then try and source the plants from completely different parts of the country, and hopefully they will come from a different genetic background, or even better, from another country. When I first when I got my chocolate vines, one of them came from France and one from the UK, so the odds are they were from a different genetic source, and sure enough they've pollinated each other, because that is another plant. Chocolate vines are not generally self-fertile, so if you buy two vines from the same nursery, they're almost certainly from the same genetic stock and will still not be self-fertile. Anyway, hope that was just a reminder that might be useful to some people who had forgotten that you don't want clones. If possible, you want to try and get different genetic backgrounds. If you think that's going to be useful, then definitely share the video. Please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if any of my videos are of any use to you, and please give them a share. I'll see you all in the next video. Brett out for now.